Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, teacher. How are you?
Hello,
Good
good
morning.
morning.
Morning, teacher.
Trying to stay warm. How about you guys?
Cold.
Good.
Me too.
Maybe
Me too. It's so cold outside.
you think we should put the fire on? Let's put the fire on. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the fire on, Mr. John. Okay, let's do that. All right, we'll put the fire on. That's a good idea. Okay. All right, so here we go, guys.
We need to be beside this.
Well, you can get closer to the screen.
Yes. Yes. I feel comfortable.
Well, that's what I usually do when I want to get warm. We don't have a fireplace in our house, so I just put on the fire on YouTube. There you go. I don't think it really works, but still, it's a good idea. All right, so I see Yafet is here and Diana. Okay, and all right, excellent. All right, well, guys, we're going to get started here in just a moment. We have lots of new students joining us here this session, so that's exciting. And in just a moment, we're going to begin. I think maybe the first thing we'll do is if you would like to just put a little hello message in the chat. So again, if you remember, if you're using a computer, the chat will be here at the bottom of the right-hand side. If you're using a phone, you can find the chat under the three little dots and where it says in call messages. So if everybody just wants to do a quick hello in the chat, that'll be a good opportunity to see if everyone knows how to find it. Because some of you have maybe been taking classes with Miss Jones, so Zoom, maybe you were used to using Zoom. So here we use Google Meet, so it's a little different. So we'll see here who's in the chat. So there's Yafet and Patricia, okay. And Fatima, Laura, May, okay, Diana, good. And Roxana, yeah, so there's Gada, okay. All right. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm sure we'll have more people joining us because, like we said, we have a lot of new students signed up for our course here in our first day. So we'll see who shows up, and we'll go from there. All right, well, guys, welcome back, and of course, we want to say Happy New Year to everyone. I know it's already the middle of January, but again, Happy New Year to you. And we're going to actually talk a little bit about New Year and New Year celebrations, because here in the United States, you might already be aware of the different New Year type things we like to do here in the United States. It's actually not that much. I know in other countries, New Year's is really popular. So, but here in the United States, I would especially like to share a song that we like to sing at this time of year. So we're going to talk a little bit about that here this morning. And then in the second part of our class, I'm going to introduce us to Burlington English grammar. So I know many of you have used Burlington English before, maybe in my class or in Miss Jones' classes, but maybe you're not as familiar with the grammar course. So I thought we would start the session with a couple of grammar discussions, because again, we don't do a lot of grammar in the course, but I think this is a grammar topic that would be very helpful to everyone to review, and that is talking about comparatives and superlatives. So we'll talk more about that as we go along in our session. But of course, since we do have some new students joining us here this morning, I thought it would be a great opportunity to take a few minutes and introduce ourselves to our classmates. So it's just going to be a few minutes where you get to share, what your name is, where you're from. So in just a moment, we're going to go into the breakout room, and I would like for you to discuss these two questions, or these two topics. Okay. So number one, of course, is to just introduce your name, where you're from, and how long have you lived here, either in the area or in the United States. It doesn't matter. And then number two, do you have any New Year's resolutions that you've made for 2025? So for example, things like, do you want to do more exercise, or maybe eat more broccoli? Of course, that is not my resolution, as you know. So my answer, of course, would be to eat less broccoli, but maybe you would like to eat more broccoli. I think it's good for you. So the idea is you can talk about that too. So we'll just take a few minutes. We'll go into the breakout room and just take a few minutes to introduce ourselves to our classmates. Okay, so I think that's a great opportunity here, especially in the beginning, since we do have some new students. And of course, we don't really get to see each other. I don't require cameras to be turned on, but it's still nice to, meet and talk to people here in our class. And that's why we're here, right? To communicate and to practice. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Now, again, I'm going to use the chat. So in a few moments, when you go into the breakout room, I'll put those two questions in the chat, and we'll take about 5-8 minutes or so to introduce ourselves to our classmates. Okay. So I'm going to get our breakout rooms ready. I think we'll probably do groups of 3. That's always good for a first discussion. So we'll get these together. And like we said, we'll have different people in each group. Okay. All right. Okay, it looks like our groups are ready. So we'll go into the breakout room, and then I will come and share those 2 topics for you to discuss. And we'll take it, like I said, about 5, 7, maybe. All right, looks like most people have returned. All right, now everyone is back. All right, so, okay, now we don't have time necessarily to hear everyone's New Year's resolution, so I'm just going to ask some basic questions for the whole group, okay? So if you notice with your emojis, you have the opportunity to raise your hand. So I'm going to ask some questions. If this is true for you, raise your hand. Okay, so first off, how many people said that their resolution was to exercise more? How many people said that was their resolution? Raise your hand if you said, I'm going to exercise more in the new year. All right, let's see. So, wow, 5, 6, 7. Okay, a lot of people. That's always a good one, right? Always a good one. Okay, all right. How many people said that they're going to eat better? They're going to eat better food, not potato chips and, junk food. They're going to eat healthy. How many people said that? Raise your hand if you said you're going to eat better food, healthy food, cooking, all that stuff. Okay. All right. Okay, so a few people. Okay, not as many. Okay, how many people said that their resolution was to study more English? Study more English. Raise your hand. How many people said they want to study more English? Okay, let's see. Wow, is it going to be everybody? Is it going to be everybody? No, just a few people? What? Well, you're in English class now. Okay.
We want to improve our English.
Well, sure, but that should be everyone's resolution, right? That's why we're here, right? Okay, all right. Okay, now. Oh, I see. Okay. Now, finally, does anyone have maybe an unusual or strange or maybe a little bit different kind of resolution to share with us? You can use the microphone if you'd like to share with us. So, Gada, you have an unusual or different type of resolution you would like to share?
Yes, of course. I'm trying to ask to know more about volunteering work or volunteering in my county for the new year, and I like also to sign up for a Poon Country library to read more.
Well, certainly you could do both things. You could volunteer to work at the library.
Yes.
I've had many
How can I
students.
volunteer? How can
Yeah.
I volunteer?
Well, you go to the library and ask them, and sometimes they have people, put books on the shelves or to help people find books in the library. It's a great way, of course, to practice English, practice
Yes,
speaking.
yes.
Yeah, I've had lots of students do that in the
Yes, I
past.
need to practice English with
Same.
many people.
Yeah, and maybe
But before that, I'm trying to get the driver license.
well,
To
that
move faster.
yeah, that might be the first problem. Yeah, so maybe that
Yes.
could be maybe that should be resolution number 1. Okay.
Yes, yes.
There we go. Okay. All right. But I like Agata, getting out and meeting people. That's always a good resolution. All right, Zaida, what about you? What's your resolution for 2025?
May grow my business, my store grow.
Interesting. Now, I'm sorry. What kind of business is it?
A store clothes for women.
I'm sorry. I don't store
Clothes.
clothes
Clothes. Woman.
for women. Okay.
For woman. Yes.
Are these clothes that you make?
Grow. Crecer.
But to grow your business? Well,
Maybe increase your sales, no?
Yes.
you mean just so? But what do you sell? What's your business?
Clothe the woman. For woman. Clothe the woman.
Clothing.
Clothing. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, do you make it? Do you make the clothes, or do you?
Sell.
Okay, you just sell them. Okay, I see. Okay, so is this some business that you've started this business already?
Yes.
Okay.
In Florence, Kentucky.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, so you actually have a location.
7107 Dixie Highway.
Wow. Okay, so you're actually in a real place. Okay, I thought maybe you meant like online or something. Okay.
Okay.
Very interesting.
The name of my business is Megara Boutique.
Okay, do us a favor. Put it in the chat. Put your name and address for the business in the chat. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds exciting. I like it. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Any other interesting, different resolutions we have for us?
Improve my English
pronunciation. That's everybody wants that. Everybody wants that. Okay. By the way, did anybody say they wanted to eat more broccoli in 2025? Anyone? Yeah. Okay. Good. If you said no, then you can stay in the class. Okay. So that's good. Okay. Nobody should eat more broccoli. All right, very good. All right, now here in the United States, again, we could talk about New Year's traditions in your countries, but I'd like to take a few moments and talk about the New Year's tradition that is, I think, very particular to especially English-speaking countries around the world, and of course here in the United States, and that is a particular song that we like to sing during the New Year's Day or New Year's Eve tradition. And in fact, I'm pretty sure you've probably heard this song before if you were watching television on New Year's Eve on December 31st, when the time changes from midnight, to the next day. So I would like to take a moment and teach us an expression. And this expression is part of a song that we do like to sing during the New Year's tradition. And I think it's a great song because it's a great opportunity to talk about, the important thing. Thank you, Saida. Thank you for sharing that. So the name of the song is called Auld Lang Syne. Auld Lang Syne. Now, this is not an English expression. In fact, this is in the language of what we call the Old Scots language. Scots is referring to Scotland, the country. Now, I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment. But the name Auld Lang Syne translates into kind of the words for the old times, or if we think about it in kind of a today's English, maybe like the good old days or the time that we had in the past. So for example, when you're children or teenagers, or when you were maybe together at school. So again, the expression is from a language that most people really don't speak anymore. Some people do in Scotland, but there is no perfect translation in English. There's no real good way to translate it. So again, we might think of it as the good old days, right? The good old days. Now, this particular song comes from a very famous writer over here on the right side. His name is Robert Burns. And Robbie Burns is basically thought of as the most famous poet, writer, singers, songwriter from Scotland, the country of Scotland. And if you notice, he lived a long time ago, 1759 to 1796. Now, what's interesting is some of the songs that he wrote, we still have those songs today here in the United States. But of course, in Scotland, they're still very popular. He wrote over 300 songs, very, very well known. But probably this song, Auld Lang Syne, is probably his most famous. And it's one that we sing every year during the New Year's tradition. Now, as I said before, this song is the perfect song to sing for the new year. It really is. So again, he wrote this song in 1788. And one of the reasons why this song has become so popular is because the holiday of New Year's is very popular. It's a very big holiday in Scotland. In fact, it might even be more popular than Christmas. And the name of the holiday in Scotland is called Hogmanay, which again is not an English word. But again, I know in some of your countries, right? Some of your countries, maybe New Year's Eve is a big day, a big tradition, right? Maybe you have food and family get-togethers. So this particular song, this here in Scotland, so that's Scotland right there. This is the country, the British Isles right here. And Scotland is the country at the northern part of the country. I visited Scotland. I visited there, 2 times. My family, many of my family is from Scotland originally, long time ago. But what's interesting is this song, because this song is such a good song for the new year, it spread throughout the English speaking world very quickly. And it came to the United States thanks to immigrants, thanks to people who were moving from Scotland and Ireland in the 18th and 19th century. So they brought, again, they brought food, they brought their songs and culture. Again, just like many of you coming from the countries where you come from, bringing food and culture and traditions here to the United States. Again, we have lots of these traditions in our country that don't really come from just the United States. They come from many countries around the world. Now, of course, the song eventually became popular thanks to the radio. And one of the reasons it became so popular was because of this man right here. His name was Guy Lombardo, and he had an orchestra, and they would play, they would have a big party on New Year's, and people would listen to it on the radio. If you lived in a very, very small place, you couldn't, travel to New York City. You would listen to the radio, and you would hear this song on the radio, and maybe you and your family would have a cup, have some tea or, drinking something, and you would sing this song and listen to it on the radio. So this song became popular, really popular, beginning in the 1940s and 50s, thanks to Guy Lombardo. He would play this song on the radio. And of course, now it's become very much a tradition all across the United States and English-speaking world. Now, let me talk a little bit about the lyrics, because the lyrics are very difficult to understand. So on the left side is kind of the lyrics in the Scottish language. And then over on the right side, I'll give you kind of a quick English translation. So let me just read the lyrics over here on the left side. Now, the first thing to remember is that this song is kind of like a song between 2 friends. Someone who is singing to a friend, or 2 friends singing to each other. So I'll just read it very quickly. It says, "Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and auld lang syne? For auld lang syne, my dear, for auld lang syne. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for auld lang syne. Okay, so now most people who sing this song don't really think about it. They just kind of sing it. But here's kind of the translation. Okay, so this is just a basic translation. The translation here is it's not good to forget the old friends and the old times, right? We shouldn't forget those things. Let's remember the old times and the old friends. So everyone raise a glass, maybe in your culture you might say, here in America we might say cheers, right? Or here here. Maybe in some countries you might say, something different, right? Maybe you say something else. So let's raise a glass and remember the good old days, right? Let's remember those days. Let's remember those times together. Now, this is the part of the song that most people know. Okay, this song actually is kind of long. So most people only sing the first part of the song because the rest of it is almost very difficult to understand. But that's the basic idea of the song. Let's remember the good old days. 2024, let's not forget 2024. Let's not forget the past, but let's also think about the good times that maybe are going to happen in the new year. Don't forget the old year. Let's try to remember the old year, the old times as well. Now, of course, we're going to hear the song. I'm going to play a little bit of the song for you. And first off, this is one of my favorite singers. His name is Dougie MacLean. He's from Scotland, and he is a great singer, a great songwriter, and this is one of his favorite songs, Auld Lang Syne. So begin, what I'm going to do is sing. I'm going to play a little bit of the song. Now, as you're listening, okay, so as you're listening, see if you can recognize the song. See if you can recognize the melody. Okay. Now, again, I'm just going to play a little bit of it, and then I'll share one more song, one more version of the song that maybe you have heard, especially if you were watching on New Year's Eve. Okay. Now, I'm going to put the words over on the left side again. I'm going to turn off my microphone and camera just for a moment. So just take a moment and listen to this beautiful song. And again, we're just going to listen to the first part of it. Okay.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of auld lang syne? For auld lang syne, me dear, for auld lang syne, we'll tak a cup o' kindness yet for auld lang syne.
Okay, so that's just a little taste, a little bit of the song there. As you can see, it's the melody itself is very simple, but I think, again, a very beautiful song, and people love to sing it together. So did anyone recognize the melody? Have you recognized that song before?
Nope.
Okay, well, maybe if you were watching on New Year's Eve, were any of you watch in New York City when they drop the ball and they count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6? Well, I'm going to play a video from New Year's Eve, not this year, but from the previous year, and listen in the background to the song that they're playing. Maybe you'll recognize it there. Okay, so here's how it sounds today. This is not so traditional, and when many people like to watch in New York City. So again, I don't know if you watched in New York the ball dropping, but they play this song, and all the confetti comes down, and people kiss to celebrate the new year. So here we go. Let's watch. So, do you hear it? Da, 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 da. That's it. That's the song, Auld Lang Syne. And so, you see it in movies. People sing the song together. It's a very good song, I think, to hear during this time. So maybe Saida, did you recognize the song? Did you hear it there?
Yes. And the fact in mm, my young, where I am young,
Yeah.
in the vacation campamentos.
Yeah. The bells. Yeah.
Okay. The finish on the end, the song is for goodbye.
Yeah.
Despedida.
And in fact, Saida, one of my students from Japan told me that they often play that song when it's time to close the store.
Yes.
People would say, "Oh, it's time to go," so they would hear da 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 da. Oh, time to leave. Yeah, so it's kind of funny, isn't it, how the song has been used in other countries. But that's the song, guys, Auld Lang Syne. And again, I love the words of the song, even though we don't really think about them. People, just sing. And again, on New Year's, of course, they kiss, and it's a very good moment. But the idea is, I think it's a great song to think about. Now, here's a question I would like to ask everybody. Okay. Now, sometimes when we do an expression like we have here today, sometimes I like to do a little group activity, and sometimes I like to talk just to the whole class. So let's think about the song, and let's think about as people, do we like to remember the old days, or do you like to think only about the future, or maybe you like to do both? So let's hear from people here in the class. How would you answer this question? Do you like to remember the good old days? Maybe talking to friends and sharing with the old memories and things together, or do you like, that's finished? Let's talk about the future. So let's hear from you guys. You can use the chat or the microphone if you like. Tell us your thoughts about this, because again, some people like to remember the good old days, and other people not so much. So what about you? Do you like to do that? Who would like to share with us? No? So gotta? No past, no future. What? So what do you like to do?
In my case,
Yeah?
sometimes I like to remember the old days, especially the good old days.
Well,
But
hold on, Patricia. So for you, what are the good old days? Like in your experience, is that when you were a child? Is that high
maybe my
school?
childhood, or even a specific date on my life. I don't know, some birthdays or some vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. But also I enjoy to focus in my future, because obviously it's my path in my life, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think some people like to do both, but sometimes it's good to spend time thinking about the old days, right? I think it's okay to do that.
Yeah, but not always, because
Yeah.
obviously it's not healthy to do that.
Yeah, because then if you think too much about it, yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think so. Roxana, you said a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, it's good to remember the old days, but it's good to focus in the future.
So
But
Roxana, I'm curious. Do you use Facebook, or do you use social media? Do you ever talk about the old days with your friends on Facebook? Because some people don't like to do that anymore. They think that social media is kind of negative. What do you do?
I don't like too much use social media for that. I prefer a message from WhatsApp, or
Okay.
I don't know. Oh,
So if,
a phone.
well, so if a friend sends you an old picture, like, "Hey, Roxana, do you remember this?"
Yeah,
Okay.
I like
Okay.
that.
I think it's good sometimes to do that, right? Sometimes my family will put old pictures
Yeah,
on Facebook, and it's nice to see, oh, this is what my grandfather or grandmother,
yeah,
a long time ago. Sure.
it's good.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. All right. So Saida said the old days with your husband and daughter, and we like to laugh. Okay. I think it's good when you have family to share those memories with. Okay. All right. Yeah, I got it. What would you say? So you said no past, no future. So what do you
Yes,
mean?
yes. I mean that if there is no past, there is no future.
Well, that may be true. That seems very political, though. It seems very philosophical. But just you personally, do you like to think about the old days, or
Yes, yes, of course, of course. I can say that I live on my old days and my old experience, my old friends, my old big pictures with my family and my friends
Mhm.
in different stages of when I was kid or when I was at school,
Sure,
when I
sure.
was at college. Every time I have many many experience and many memories. I have to I like to remember it all the time, but also I have to focus on my future.
Sure.
So I like to do both. Remember all days and focus on the future.
Well, I like what Patricia mentioned. You know, it's kind of a balance, right? If we spend too much time thinking about the past, it does make thinking about the future more difficult. So I think in some ways it's difficult to find a balance. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
some people wish, oh, I wish I could return to the past, you know.
Even my bad experience, it taught me a lot.
That's true, and I think that's important too. Of course, some experiences are very difficult. That can be very hard to revisit, but I do think it's if you have a good attitude about it, maybe yes, maybe there's something to learn from it. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Julie, what about you?
I have some opinion about when we thought about the past, because the situation is when we thought about the past, the time past, is because we only care the good thing.
Right.
We was living in the past,
Hmm.
but sometimes we don't remember the bad situation, and we try to for this time we try don't remember
Sure.
the where the uh the tragic
Right. Right.
suicide, and then it's too difficult um uh to do the people understand
Right.
the past have the good thing and the bad thing, and then we need to change this attitude about only to like to return or come
Yeah.
back the good thing in the past. We need to change it. It's the new year, the
Hmm.
change this attitude and try to do good thing this year, this moment in the present,
Right.
because this is good for good memory in the past and
Sure.
the best future.
I think you make a good point there, Julie, that we do need to think about what we're doing now, because this will be what we think about in 10 years or 20 years. We'll look back at this moment and think about it. So I think the more we can think about it and be more purposeful, that's a good point. But it's also
Yeah,
true. I think
and I'm sorry, Mr. Gar.
no,
And when you practice the mindfulness, as when you thought you never return in the present,
yeah,
you never stay in the future all the time. You never stay in the past or the future. You stay in the present every
that's right.
time.
That's right.
And
That,
then we need to doing the best day today. You be happy. You stay in peace with the other person, and we try to produce the good feel and our around our and this is good. It's
right.
good when the people feel good. If you feel happy, you it's like you are the light in the dark moment.
Sure, sure. Well, and I like, and I think I like what you said there. We can certainly choose to remember the past differently, but of course we can also try to learn from it, just like Gada said. I think that's a good point. Yafet, I'll give you the final thing here. So Yafet, what were you going to say?
So sometimes I do like to remember the old days because I think that so sometimes remember the old days, maybe the time that we might have shared with a friend or maybe a family member can bring us a sort of joy. And I know that some people don't like to remember the bad old days. Sometimes I think that remember the bad old days can help us or bring us sort of courage to 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 think to see that maybe in the past something bad happened to us, but
Hmm.
we overcome it. I mean, we deal with that kind of bad things that happen. So think in the past, think the old days can help us to have a good point of view about future or maybe about something what can happen in the future.
Right, right.
Eh,
No, Yafet, I think that's a perfect way to put it. And I really do agree. I think what you said and I think what Gada said can really work together. We need to learn from it. You know, it's even the bad experiences teach us something and how we can try to be better because of it. Now, I understand I have students, you know, who've had some very terrible experiences in their past, and those are hard things to deal with and to go back and revisit. And of course, you know, those are things that aren't easy to deal with, and I'm certainly not an expert in helping helping people overcome those problems. But I do think it's a good point to say that we can choose to think about the past in a different way, or we can choose to try to learn from it because we need those experiences to teach us things. So listen, we could talk about this topic for a long time. I know that a lot of you have some good opinions about it, and of course that's also the nice thing about having a class with different ages and different experiences. We all have different things to share. Miriam put in the chat, we can feel happy and sad at the same time. And I think that is true. That is a reality, that good memories can sometimes make us sad too. Sad memories can make us happy because they do bring something to us that maybe we need to learn, or maybe we have forgotten. So, well, anyway, guys, thank you. We could talk about this for a long time, but we need to move on in our topic. So, but anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because I think New Year's is a good time for always to think about what happened in 2024. What can we learn? But as Robbie Burns here has reminded us with that song, "Auld Lang Syne," that it's good. We need to remember the good old days. Let's not forget them. But of course, we're still here today, and that's what the idea is. We turn from the the one year to the next year, and that's it's okay to do both. It's okay to do both at the same time. Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts in that topic. All right, so what I'd like to do here with our remaining time is let's go ahead and introduce Burlington English. Now, again, I know we have some new students here in our class. Yesterday, I introduced Burlington English, but I'm just going to kind of review a little bit, especially for our new students, the Burlington English sort of platform, but also specifically the Burlington English grammar section, because we'll do Burlington English activities from our regular high intermediate level. But I wanted to start the session with a little topic here that may be a good idea for us to talk about, and that is comparatives and superlatives. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to open Burlington English here on the screen, and let me make sure I've logged in. There we go. Okay. Now, I want to remind everybody real quickly that if you are having any problems with Burlington English, don't tell me now. Okay, I'll totally forget. So if you're having problems logging into Burlington English, send me an email and we'll see what's going on. Sometimes if it's been a while since you've used the account, it gets turned off. So I go in and turn it on. So again, please make sure your Burlington is working. And if you have any problems, just send me an email. Now, again, just to walk through very quickly the Burlington experience. When you log in, you probably should see your name there at the top of the screen. And lots of boxes. Most of these boxes are boxes that I see as the teacher. Most of the time, we will be using the courses box right here at the top. Later in this session, we're going to look a little bit more at the English for specific careers. This was something else I wanted to do during this winter session. And I also hope we may not be able to do it in the winter time. We might do it in the spring to do something from the readers section of the Burlington English experience. But let's jump into the courses box. And again, just quickly walk you through from the courses box, you will see the different topics here on the screen. Student orientation, for example. So student orientation, that's usually what occurs first if this is your first time in Burlington. General English, which is what we use most of the time. The other topics here is civics, careers, and exam preparation. We don't use those as much. But what I'm going to talk about here this morning in just a moment is the grammar section and doing some grammar activities, which is what we're going to practice a little bit here for our first couple of classes. Now, again, for the general English, just to click on that for just a moment. For general English, most of you are already familiar with the different levels that we offer, and I want to remind everybody that all of these levels are available to you at all times. You can do all of the basic activities, low beginner, you could do anything. It's all available to you for free. Wow, how about that? We like free, right? But the idea is in our course, most of what we do will be done in the high intermediate level. Now, I'm not going to jump into that right now, but that is the level that we practice with in this course. But as I said this morning, we're going to be talking about the grammar course. So I'm going to click on the grammar section. And as you can see already here at the bottom, we have 3 different levels: beginners, intermediate, and advanced. So we're going to be jumping into the intermediate level here today. And I'm going to be introducing basically 2 topics. They're kind of separated into 2 topics in the grammar course, and that is comparatives and superlatives. So I'm going to click on the intermediate level, if it will open. There we go. Now, again, as the teacher, I have a different view. I can see different things. So, for example, there where it says in-class lessons, worksheets, this is what I see. So you don't see that. But you will see where it says student lessons and progress. That is what is available to you to use in Burlington English. So when students say, Mr. John, I need to practice grammar, again, we do some grammar practice here in the course, but this is also available for you to practice. Look at all of these wonderful grammar activities. Wow. So if you say, oh, I'm bored, I need something to do, well, here you go. You can practice in the Burlington English grammar platform, right? Okay, but now I do want to go ahead and get started with our lesson. And we're going to be focusing on lessons 29 and 30, where it says comparatives and superlatives. Okay, so comparatives and superlatives. Now, today we're just going to practice kind of a general approach, a general idea for both comparatives and superlatives. Now, the reason I would like to talk about this is I speak Spanish, so Spanish is my second language, and I suspect that, like many of you who speak French or Portuguese or even a different language from those, that you probably have a different way of comparing things in your language. In English, we have some similarities to other languages, but you will notice some differences as well. For example, if I'm comparing something, like if I have 2 items, like I have something like this, a small little thing here, and then I've got, let's say, for example, my cup, right? So, for example, in your language, you might say something like the cup is more big, right? More big than this little thing here. Or you might say this is more small than something like the cup. So I know in many languages, we might just use the words more or less when we make comparisons, right? But in English, it's going to be, in some cases, a little different. Or if I have 3 things, right? So if I have, for example, let's take 3 items here. I'm just pulling some things here I have at my desk. My desk is a mess, by the way. So I've got a flashcard here. I've got this item here. And then if I had my cup, right? So I have 3 items. Well, you might say, well, the cup, for example, like in some languages, you might say the cup is the more big, right, of the 3 items, or the most big, right? So English expresses these relationships a little bit differently, probably from other languages here in the classroom. So what I'd like to focus on here this morning is how exactly do we make comparatives? And then from that, you will notice that making superlatives follows kind of the same rule. Okay, so when I talk about comparatives, when we look at superlatives, you will see that's pretty much kind of the same idea. Okay, so let's jump in, and the idea here is I'm going to use the teacher profile, but basically the teacher profile has the same information that you see in your profile. So for example, I'm going to pull up here on the screen. We're going to talk a little bit about just kind of making simple comparatives. Okay, so for example, everyone, take a look at the examples you see here on the screen. So if you'll notice, when we use comparatives, comparatives basically are how we express a comparison between 2 things, right? 2 people, 2 objects, 2 events, anything that you can really describe. So for example, the blue suit, right? So let's say I have 2 different colored suits, but the prices are different. For example, the blue suit is cheaper than the brown suit. So notice first off that word cheap, right? That's the original word. We add the letters ER to basically make it a comparative. So for example, cheap, we say cheaper, right? Cheap, cheaper. And then we follow it with this particular word here, the word than, cheaper than, right? Cheaper than. Notice in the second example, the brown shirt is nicer than the blue shirt. So again, we're comparing something. And again, notice nice, N-I-C-E. Well, we don't need an extra E. We just add the letter R. So for example, cheap becomes cheaper. Nice just becomes nicer with an R. Okay, so far that seems fairly simple. But of course, as words get longer and longer, then the rules start to get a little more complicated. For example, the word cheap and the word nice, both of these words have only 1 syllable. Now, a syllable basically is how many times we clap when we say a word based on the number of vowel sounds that we have in a word. So for example, with the word cheap, right, if I clap my hand, cheap, that would be 1 syllable, right? Cheap, right? So notice we're talking about vowel sounds, not vowel letters. And you might say, well, what's the difference? Well, let me show you. So for example, when we talk about cheap, right, when we talk about cheap, you will notice that the word cheap has 2 vowel letters, right? See if I can zoom in here. Sorry, sometimes this my little thing doesn't work here. Okay, there we go. So for example, the word cheap, if you look carefully, the word cheap itself, I'll make it bigger so you can see it. Okay, so the word cheap has 2 vowel letters, right? The letters E and A. Both of these are vowels. But if you notice, we do not pronounce them individually. We pronounce them as one group, right? As one sound. So when we talk about syllables, right? When we talk about syllables, syllables refer to the number of vowel sounds. Okay. So the number of vowel sounds in a word. So if I said, for example, cheap, cheap has 2 vowel letters, right? But when I pronounce it, I just clap once, right? Cheap, okay? Again, let's take the word nice. So if I put the word nice here on the screen, same thing. In the word nice, I see two vowel letters, the letter I and the letter E, but I don't pronounce the E. In fact, we don't hear the E at all. So again, when I say the word nice, right? Nice, it's just one clap, one syllable in the word. Okay, now let's take a longer word just for a moment. Okay, so class, help me out with this one. So let's put this word here on the screen. So for example, if I said this word here, okay. All right, now who would like to say this word for us? Who could pronounce this word?
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Now, this is one of those crazy words where we do not pronounce every sound. Some students look at it and think interesting. But if you remember, we do not pronounce every sound in the word. We say interesting. So, for example, we don't pronounce that E after the T, right? Okay, now class, if we think about it, okay, so this is, you probably didn't think you were going to clap your hands, right, in class. But don't worry, it'll keep your hands warm. All right, so class, let's clap. How many times? Okay, so ready? Interesting. So how many times did I clap?
3.
3.
3 times. Okay, see, it's like we're like in kindergarten, right? We figured it out. Okay. So, for example, we would say that interesting has 3 syllables, right? So the basic idea here is when we're creating these comparatives, right? When we're thinking about making words like bigger, smaller, those words, we have to think first about how many syllables are in the word. If we have only 1 syllable, then we just add ER, right? Cheap, cheaper, nice, nicer. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to remember is the idea of syllables. Now I'm going to kind of push this over to the right side of the screen. We'll move our interesting example over there. But as we said before, cheap and nice would both be examples of 1 syllable words. Okay. All right. Now, what I'd like to do is I'm going to kind of zoom in so we can continue with our discussion. And of course, this is English. So that means things get crazy because English is crazy. Let's dial in and take a look at some other rules that we see here on the screen. For example, if the word that we're using ends in what's called the consonant vowel consonant combination, then you'll notice that we will double the last letter. For example, the word thin. Now, of course, if we clap thin, thin has only 1 syllable. So we'll put thin over here on this side here. So we have nice, we have thin, right? That's a 1 syllable word. But then it becomes a challenge of spelling because we have this consonant, right? This H-I-N, this consonant vowel consonant situation, we will double the letter. Thin, thinner, right? That's the pronunciation, but we double the letter and then we have ER. Okay, so for example, thin becomes thinner, right? And again, we said nice becomes nicer. Okay, so far, how are we doing? Are we doing okay so far? Are we confused? Are we still understanding and following? Okay. Are we still awake? Someone falling asleep? It's hard sometimes in the morning when we talk grammar. All right, let's continue. Now, of course, English, because English is crazy, we do have some exceptions to the 1 syllable rule. Notice in the next example, it says, when the adjective ends in the letter Y. Now, let's take, for example, the word pretty. Okay, now class, help me out. I'm going to clap, and I want you to tell me how many syllables are in the word. Pretty. How many times did I clap?
2.
2 times, right? Pretty. Okay. All right, let's try happy. Ready?
Happy.
Okay, so May, how many times?
2 times.
2 times, yeah. So you might say, well, Mr. John, is the rule different here? What's the problem? Well, the problem is the letter Y. Pretty, happy. These words are so short, okay, they have 2 syllables, but they end in the letter Y. So we still will use ER, right? We'll still use ER to add to the end of the word, but we make another spelling change. Pretty becomes prettier. We change the Y to an I. Or happy becomes happier, happier than, right? So prettier than, happier than, okay? So there are going to be these kinds of exceptions that we see to the one syllable or 2, 3, 4, and so on rules, okay? Again, English has lots of crazy exceptions here. All right, now class, here's what I'd like for you to do, okay? Just to help our minds get comfortable with this idea, I'd like for everyone, turn on your microphones. Everybody turn on your microphones, okay? Turn on your microphones. Come on, everybody. Turn on those microphones. All right, so let's practice making these changes, okay? So guys, repeat after me. Cheap, cheaper than.
Cheap,
Cheap,
cheaper than.
nice, nicer than.
Nice,
Nicer than.
Thin, thinner than.
Thin, thinner than.
Pretty, prettier than.
pretty,
Pretty,
than.
Happy, happier than.
Happy,
happier than.
Okay, now, real quickly, at the bottom of the screen, you will notice that the words good and bad do not have direct changes. They are irregular. So everyone, repeat after me. Good, better than.
good,
Than.
Bad, worse than.
bad,
Worse than.
Okay, now you can turn off your microphones there for just a moment. Okay, yeah, so sometimes students think, Mr. John, good, gooder? What about gooder? Can I say gooder? No, we don't say gooder, we say better. Bad, badder? Can I say badder? No, we say worse, worse than. Okay, now class, as you can see, English is crazy. We have lots of these little rules and spelling changes that we need to remember. So it gets a little confusing, I understand. Now, of course, I talked a little bit about syllables. Why is that important? Well, that's because what you're seeing here on the first screen is when we talk about words that have one syllable or that have the letter Y at the end of the word, especially these short words. But what happens if we have words that are longer? Well, actually, this is not so difficult because this is probably more similar to your language, which is this. When we are comparing things that have 2 or more syllables, we don't put ER at the end. We put the word more. More. So again, look at the examples here on the screen. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it a little bit better, and I'm going to move our cheap and nicer and all of that off the screen. So take a look very carefully. So for example, words like casual, elegant, famous, of course, a word we just talked about, interesting, right? All we do is basically put the word more in front of it. So casual, more casual than, right? Now, if just to demonstrate, casual, casual, right? There are 3 syllables, right? Elegant, right? Elegant, 3 syllables. Famous, well, famous has 2, but that's still more than 1. So more famous than. So again, look at the examples. The gray dress is more casual than the black dress. The black dress is more elegant than the gray dress. This clothes shop is more famous than the other clothes shop. So there you go. When you have words that are longer than 1 syllable and 2 syllables that don't have a Y, you just put the word more in front, right? So not so bad. Okay, so guys, one more time. Let's turn on the microphones. Go on, everybody, turn on those microphones. Let's say these together, okay? Real quickly. Ready? Casual, more casual than. Elegant, more elegant than.
Elegant,
More elegant than.
Famous, more famous than.
Famous.
More
famous
than.
Okay, you can turn off the microphones again. Okay, so there you go. We have just given you an introduction to comparatives. So remember, comparatives are when we are comparing two things, just two. So like my example again with cup and this little thing here. Now class, let's see what you've remembered so far. So for example, I want to compare the size of my cup to the size of this little thing right here. So class, let's use the word big. Okay, let's use the word big. Now class, what would I say? Would I say the cup is bigger than this thing here? Or would I say the cup is more big than?
Bigger than.
Bigger.
Bigger. That's right,
Bigger.
bigger than. Now here's the next question. How would I write it?
Double E.
I would use a double G.
GG.
Now, how did you know that? How did you know that we would put a double G? How did you know? Well, remember the rule.
Consonant vowel.
If I have a consonant, vowel, consonant, so even a short word like big, consonant, vowel, consonant, then I double the G. Now, before we continue, class, I do want to say this right now, okay? I want everyone to understand this. This is kind of crazy, okay? It is kind of crazy. Why, Mr. John? Why am I doubling a letter? Why? Well, I'm going to share with you something very interesting, okay? So everyone listen carefully. Listen carefully. Most Americans, most English speakers make mistakes with this too. We learn this in school as little kids, and then we forget about it. So next time you're on Facebook or Instagram or social media and someone is trying to say bigger than, don't be surprised if they forget to double the G. Okay? Now, I don't recommend you type in and say, hey, by the way, it's double G. You know, don't try to correct their spelling, okay? Then they'll get angry. But the truth is, most Americans forget this stuff. We forget it too, because it's kind of crazy. Why am I doubling letters and changing letters and so on? Now, of course, there is a reason, but it's more about the idea of pronunciation. The key is to keep the spelling to the pronunciation of the original word, but let's not worry about that. So all I'm going to tell you is this: even Americans have trouble with this rule. Okay, so there you go. Even Americans have trouble. All right, now let's go back to my cup. Okay, so I have my cup and oops, I lost, there it is. Okay, so now let's say I want to talk about this and I want to use the word small. If I want to say this, so would I say smaller than or more small than? What would I say?
Smaller than.
Smaller than. Okay, now should I put like 4 extra L's or something? How should I spell it? How many L's do I need?
2L.
Just 2, right? That's because the original word small has 2 consonants, not 1. So in this case, I don't need to do anything. I can just put ER at the end. Okay? Yeah, so in this case, that's not so bad. All right, that's not so bad. But, oh, what about the word beautiful? What if I want to say that my cup, right, compared to this little thing, if I want to say that it's beautiful compared to this, so would I say beautifuler or more beautiful than this little
More beautiful than.
More
thing?
beautiful.
More beautiful than. And that's because it's a longer word, right?
More beautiful than.
Than, that's right. So I don't say beautifuler, right? That's too hard to say. It's too many words or too many sounds. Yeah, more beautiful than. Okay. All right, guys, you're doing a wonderful job here with our first discussion of comparatives. Now, real quickly, I'm going to jump over to superlatives, and I want you to notice that the rules for superlatives are almost exactly the same as the rules for comparatives. So that's why I want to show you, because you're going to do a quick activity with a partner, and we're going to see how much you've learned. So let's jump over to superlatives right now. Now, superlatives are when we're talking about 3 things. instead of 2, 3 or more. Now, you will notice very simply that superlatives are actually following the same rules as what we just talked about with comparatives. Here's the difference. When I want to compare 3 things, or I want to say that this is the only one or the best, take a look. Again, once you figure out comparatives, you will see that the basic rules are kind of the same. For example, when we said nicer, like this is nicer than, well, if I want to use nice in this case, notice what I do. The nicest. Nicest. So when I have ER for nicer than, if I want to make a comparative, I basically say nicest. And in fact, notice we say the nicest. So again, what do? Well, we just change ER to EST, and there you go. If I want to say tall, right? So if I have 3 things, so for example, remember my 3 examples here, my cup, my little flashcard, and my little small thing here. If I wanted to say the cup, for example, if I want to say the cup is the biggest, right? Instead of ER, I just put EST and I put the word the biggest, right? So superlatives follow basically the same rules. So if I have 3 or more things, I don't put ER. So if I put ER for a comparative, I just change it to EST. So again, cheap, the cheapest. Remember pretty? Prettier than when I'm comparing 2 things. Well, if I have 3 things, we would say the prettiest, the happiest, right? And then for good, we would say not better, the best, right? The best. So for better, we would just say the best. Okay. For example, Mr. John is the best. Oh, thank you so much. So in this case, there you go. Now for bad, remember we said worse than for comparative. Well, guess what? For superlative, the worst. The worst. So as you can see, they follow the same rules. We just make a few little changes, and we have now what's called a superlative. So remember, a superlative is when we're comparing 3 or more things, right? So instead of the prettier, we would say the prettiest, the happiest. Okay, now class, what do you think is going to happen for words that have 2 syllables or 3 syllables? So for example, if I said more beautiful, how do you think I would change it if I'm comparing 3 or 4 things?
The most.
The most. That's it. So instead of saying more beautiful than, now I could compare my cup to the other items, and I could say the cup is the most beautiful. The most. So in this case, if I can fit it on the screen, sorry, so I don't know why it always starts out so big. There we go. Maybe I can make it a little smaller there. Okay. Can I make it smaller? Yeah, there we go. All right. And if I can change it, there we go. Yeah. So instead of saying more beautiful, we would just say the most beautiful. So again, what are the parts of the expression again? Well, we need the word the, okay, that's important. And then again, if it's ER, we change to EST, the nicest, the biggest, the prettiest, the most beautiful. Okay, that's it. These are the only changes we make when we're comparing 3 or 4 or more things. That's it. So if we learn the comparative rule, the superlative rule basically is the same. We just make a few little spelling changes, but it's basically the same idea. It follows the same sort of rules. Okay? Now, what I'd like to do with the last few minutes of our class time is I'd like for you and your partner to try a little activity. So I think to make things a little faster, I think we'll just use the same groups that we had before. Room, and I want you to try this activity. Okay, so let me bring it up here on the screen. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to be given a word. Okay, so for example, the word small, this is an example, right? And what you and your partner are going to do, quite simply, is to make the comparative of the word and to make the superlative of the word. All right, so class, let's see if we can remember. What is the comparative for small? What did we say? If I'm comparing two things, we said
Smaller than.
smaller than.
Smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget that word than. That's very important there. Smaller than. Okay, and then to make the superlative,
The smallest.
the smallest. Right, we change ER to EST. Okay, that's it. Yeah, pretty simple. Okay, let's try another example. So again, that word interesting. All right, how did we make the comparative?
More
More interesting than.
More interesting than.
Than.
And then the superlative is?
The most interesting.
More.
The most interesting, right? So Mr. John's class is the most interesting class. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so the idea is you and your partner very quickly are going to be given these words right here on the left side. And what I want you and your partners to do very quickly is to make the comparatives and the superlatives. Just talk to each other very quickly. We're going to return to the room in about 5 minutes, and we're going to give the answers to the exercise. That's it, very quickly. Just a good opportunity for you to do a little grammar practice here in our first day. Now, of course, don't forget, some of these might require a spelling change, but for now, let's focus more on pronunciation. Okay, so if we can't remember exactly, we'll talk about those when we come back. Now, real quickly, guys, when we go into the breakout room, I will share the link in the chat. Okay, so make sure when you go into the breakout room, click on the link, and then you both can see the same, you all can see the same activity. Okay, so guys, we're going to go back to the breakout rooms. We're just going to keep the same rooms because it's faster to do it that way. So, guys, as we return to the breakout rooms, I will come in and share the link to the exercise. And like I said, all right, I think just about everybody has returned. Now, to make this quick, I'm just going to call on different students to tell us. So we're going to start with the comparatives side. Okay, so we're going to start on the comparative side, and I'm just going to go down my list here. So, for example, Laura, can you tell us what the comparative of good is?
Better.
All right, so Laura. We got lots of Lauras here. So, Laura, you want to try it? Hello, Laura.
Sorry, yes, I'm here. I have a problem
Okay.
with my
That's fine. That's fine. All right, so we're going to try it. Good would be?
The good?
Mm-hmm.
Better?
Yeah, better. Don't forget, better than.
Better.
Better than. Okay?
Better than.
All right, good. Fatima, how about bad?
Bad.
Fatima?
Bad, worse than.
Worse than. Okay. All right, I'm looking here. Gada, would you like to do expensive?
Yes, more expensive than.
More expensive than. All right, excellent. All right, let's see. Huang, you want to try big?
Bigger than.
Very good. And don't forget, we need 2 G's, right? Bigger than.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, good. All right, Yafet, you want to try cold?
Yeah, colder than.
Colder than. Like today is colder than yesterday. All right. All right, Julie, you want to try happy?
Yes, happiness more. No, happiness than.
Oh, you're close. Happier.
Happier than. Yeah.
There you go. All right, and then Miriam, how about popular?
Is it more popular than?
Excellent. Okay, you guys are doing great. Okay, so there comes our first list. All right, so May, you get to start over on the superlative side. So if I say better than, how would I make that a superlative?
The best of them.
Just the best. Remember, we just need the best, right? So just always remember Mr. John is the best. Okay, so thank you. That's nice. All right. Roxana, how about worse than? How would you make that a superlative?
The worst.
Oh, like Mr. John is not the worst. Okay, thank you.
Oh no.
All right, good. Samira, how about more expensive than? How would you make that a superlative?
The most expensive.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, we're doing great. All right, Saida, what about big? We have bigger than, so how would you make that a superlative?
The biggest than.
Okay, just the biggest.
Biggest
That's
than.
it. No, no than. No
Okay,
than.
okay. Biggest than.
No,
Sorry.
the biggest.
The biggest.
Biggest
That's it.
than.
No
Okay.
than, no than, no than.
Okay, biggest.
There you go. Now you got
Sorry,
it.
sorry.
Like in the future, your store will be the biggest. How's that? Okay. There you go. All right. All right, Deanna, you've got cold. Colder than?
The coldest.
The coldest. Like hopefully today is not the coldest. Okay. All right. Okay, now class, let's do the last two together. Okay, so let's do it. Happier than. Okay, guys, in one beautiful voice.
The happiest.
Happiest.
Happiness.
Yes, like we are the happiest in Mr. John's class. Good answer. Okay, and then finally, more popular.
The most
The most popular.
Okay, like this is the most popular class on the internet. Okay, I like it. All right, very good. See, you did it. We did it. So this is our first sort of opportunity to do a little grammar practice. Now you'll get to do some activities for homework. So I will send those to you in your email. And guys, sorry to say our time is up. I know it's hard when we have to say goodbye, right? Well, anyway, guys, I want to thank everybody for joining us here this morning. We're glad you're here. And everybody, we will see you on Thursday. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Bye.
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.